This kid still did have his epilogue similar to the Neverending Story because he gets to watch his parents explode.
What master craftsmanship for us to care so little about them that as audience members we're like, yeah, okay, no, that tracks. He's probably going to go get adopted by Sean Connery, the fireman.
Yeah.
Welcome to Crack Movie Club, the show where we do a book club, but for movies, which are like books, but better. I'm your host, Jordan Breeding, who only comes up with something clever on the off weeks. And this is an on week, so I have nothing to say. And I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jesse and Allie. Say hey.
Hello.
Hey, I've actually got a lot to say.
Oh, yeah?
Fire
I'll
away.
save it for the pod. I'm going to save it.
Oh, you save it? Okay, that's smart. And we are joined by a guest this week or this day. I don't know how these release. He is a magician, the inventor of Scam School on Discovery, the mastermind behind the Modern Rogue YouTube channel and website and all that, and the host, creator of World's Greatest Con, which is a podcast that rips. Ryan, say hello.
Heck yeah, dude, I'm so excited. I can't believe you fell into my trap and I forced yet more people to watch this movie.
Yeah, it is quite a movie, and I think now I will try and synopsize it. So it's called Time Bandits. And man, okay. So there's a kid, and he hates.
We're
his
already
parents.
doing great.
Yeah. So he hates his parents to the point where they literally explode and die, and it does not faze him. But that's later.
That's
alert.
it. That's the fastest synopsis.
Yeah, and that's no, and so he's living sort of in a modern world, a world taken over by technology, and everybody cares about their smart toasters before that was even in the nomenclature. But he wants to be an ancient Greek man and figure out how to kill people 45 ways. So he goes to bed, and a freaking knight busts out of his dresser in the middle of the night, and he's like, "Wow!" But nothing really comes of it. And he wakes up the next day, right? Or maybe he follows.
No, you're right.
Keep going.
Okay,
Killing
dad yells at him.
Okay, sorry. And then the next day, he's very excited to go back to bed in the event that something will bust out of his dresser. No night, he falls asleep. A bunch of little people bust out of a different dresser? No, the same dresser?
Same dresser.
I think it's the same one.
Dresser. They bust out, and they're all dressed in all sorts of crazy, different historical outfits, like pirates and like Napoleonic soldiers and knights and cowboys and stuff, and they come spilling out. They think the kid is a bad guy. They realize he's not, and then they say never mind, and they start pushing a wall in his room, which takes them through a time hole, and the kid kind of ends up following through it, and they're being chased by what they call the Supreme Being, which is a big face. And then what's ultimately
from Nickelodeon face,
right? Or like what's the guy in Power Rangers? What's the face in Power Rangers?
Zordon?
Yeah, Zordon or whatever. That's what he looks like to me.
To me, I always thought of him as Sinistar, where you're playing the video game and you hear "I live."
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was thinking about when the Wizard of Oz isn't the man behind the curtain. He's like, I'm a big head. Everybody look at my big head. That's what I was thinking. We all have different points of references for these big heads.
And this synopsis will get faster because what happens is you realize that they are using a map that they stole from the Supreme Being, who is maybe God, maybe is God. These guys are, and they're using it to travel through time, using holes in the fabric of time and space to appear places, steal a bunch of stuff, go somewhere else. There doesn't appear to be much of an end game as to where they're going to sell it or live.
Yeah, they just want to have the good stuff.
Yeah. And,
they wanted to find the most valuable object in the world, or the most precious object,
the most
or whatever.
fabulous object.
Most fabulous.
Yeah, that's a later goal though. They don't even know about that until side point. Ultimate Evil or whatever is trapped in a fortress, and he is trying to trick these time bandits into breaking him out. They're called Time Bandits because they travel through time and are bandits.
And it has to be the most fabulous object because everybody knows that the most precious object is friendship.
That's true.
They already.
Duh.
Ironically, I don't think they learned that lesson during this movie.
No. Everybody seems mad at each other all the time. Always.
Yeah. So they steal some things. They travel to some times. They end up being tricked successfully by evil. They confront evil, and he's invincible. But then God shows up and literally explodes evil. And then the kid goes back to his time and then his
specifically
parents,
God and all his friends abandon him in the very like heart of evil. God's just like, nah, I got to get out of here, and all of his new friends are like, yeah, we got to go too.
Yeah, right. And then his parents die, and Sean Connery appears briefly
and goes wink,
and he winks at him, and then the movie ends.
Over.
So that's a terrible synopsis, because I do think this is one of the most, I don't know if I would say heavily plotted, but one of the things I want to talk about, and we'll talk about this later, is like, I don't really know a lot of other movies that are so like, what's next? Because one of the dimensions they travel to is not a time dimension. They travel to like the land of legends or something.
Yeah,
anyway,
like Age of Wonders or something.
Yeah. So anyway, but before we get into that, Brian, why did you force us to watch this?
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. What if I told you I was going to bake you a cake, and here are some of the ingredients. Number one, one of the Beatles, George Harrison. Also, most of Monty Python. Also, a timing sensibility that wouldn't come to fashion for another 30 years. Like, they discovered that YouTube ADD mentality. You're never more than 5 minutes away from another 5-minute crazy YouTube video, continuing to star more Monty Python people. It's got everywhere from Robin Hood to Agamemnon to and then when they get bored of dunking on history, they go to a fantastical realm inspired by H.R. Geiger. David freaking Warner, the greatest villain, sells evil in a way he continues to be the villain into Titanic. He was Sark in Tron, and he's like, I believe every word that he's saying, and even though he's dressed in rubber cement and leftover parts from the Alien set, and also casting 6 or 7 little people who actually get to act and are really good and have comedic chops and timing. It's a bonkers postmodern mashup of imagery. If you've ever played, I remember on the schoolyard, we were all playing Richard Garriott's Lord British's Ultima series. We were playing Exodus, and there would be these moon gates that would open and close. And it's like, man, do you think he got that idea from Time Bandits? All of this imagery. And also the fact that it starts off so dark. It was marketed as a rollicking kids show, and the protagonist is a kid, and yet it is dark from the get-go with these soulless, consumerist parents with their loveless marriage and their obsession with things, and all of that is over his head as he finds his father figure and has it ripped away from him, and then discovers. I mean, and then the bonkers mashup ending, and the fact that God is asked one question at the end as he stands around cleaning up the bits of evil. Kevin asked, "Excuse me, why do you let such terrible things happen?" And he goes, "What's that?" And he's like, if you're the supreme being, why do you let such terrible things happen?" And he goes, something about free will. And then movie's over and he goes back. It is... now, keep in mind, disclosures. I saw this in the movie theater in second grade, which was... it's hard to even remember a time when you could go into a movie not already knowing everything that's going to happen in it. It was the most outrageous thing. And then when it hit HBO, I watched it every single time it came on. So I've seen this thing 40 to 50 times, watching it most recently like a week and a half ago. But I cannot tease out how much of my affection for this bizarre postmodern masterpiece is just nostalgia, or whether or not it resonates with anybody else. Visually, it's a treat. Pacing wise, I mean, the plot is very much by the numbers. It's a there and back story in 3 acts. But the mere fact that it exists makes the world a better place.
Yeah.
That's a great synopsis. Yeah.
I don't totally know, again, if it's like one of those things where it's like, is it good or is it nostalgia? It reminded me a bit, at least in the beginning, of one of my favorite weird movies from childhood that I have a hard time finding to show people / people think I made it up when I talk about it, which was Little Nemo in Slumberland.
Ooh, I don't know this one. No.
See, that's the same thing as I'll say it and I'll be like, it's a kid and his parents are unhappy and they're sort of consumerist. And then he goes to sleep in his bedroom and then he wakes up in a nightmare. So then it wasn't really real. But then the next night he has another nightmare and then it was real. And then he goes to Slumberland and then there's a monster and then he fights God. And then he comes back and then his parents are nice to him. And it's like the same.
Yeah.
But it's also, it was like kind of scary, kind of freaky, kind of doesn't make any sense. It was, it's animation, but it's like Japanese anime, very lovingly hand drawn in the like early 90s, I believe. But it's the same thing where I'm like, I tried to watch it again recently and was like, this might be bad, but I still love it. So I can't really tell. Like I withhold judgment because I like it so much because my affection for it as a child still like remains.
I can hold off until you need to hear them, but I have two dunks on the case for this. Whenever there's a pause.
Okay. Well, okay. So I'll just say there were definite moments. Like I guess basically the main thing that I thought was interesting about it was the sheer, and I already alluded to this, the sheer lunacy of it, the sheer randomness of it, the YouTube sketch comedy of it, of just, I don't know, we're going to make fun of Napoleon and then we're just going to jump over here and we're just going to jump over here. I will say that the Robin Hood part was amazing. That was the best part. John Cleese. It's like, have you met the poor? Oh, they're great.
Thank you very, 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 very much. Very much. Thank you. Of course, they'll be considerably less poor, but yes, thank you.
Right. All of that was so fascinating to me because, as I alluded to in our last podcast, depending on when the heck these things release, I didn't really watch a ton of, and I know this is early 80s, but I didn't get to watch a lot of like 80s or 90s movies as a kid. I didn't really start watching a lot of movies until kind of like later 90s, early 2000s. So I don't have a lot of reference points for movies that are like this. Like they got a lot more streamlined and produced at a certain point when I started watching. And so every time I watch one of these, my brain had no idea where we were going next. It's freaking wild. So can anybody think of any like modern movies that feel similar? Like, could this be made today? I don't know how you pitch this.
Well, there are two similar movies, and this is one of my dunks because I did a little bit of poking around. I think his autobiography, Terry Gilliam, the director, refers to this as his trilogy of the imagination, where he made 3 movies about escapists. Like the world is already messed up and bizarre enough, and we all want to escape to an even more fantastical realm. And so he made 3 movies. He made Time Bandits, which is from the perspective of a child who escapes from his parents. He made Brazil, which is from the perspective of a man in his 30s escaping from the bureaucracy, this 1984-like existence that he goes into. And then he did The Adventures of Baron von Munchausen, which is from the perspective of an old man who is escaping.
I've never even heard of that one. I know Brazil very, very well, but I don't know.
Yeah, weirdly enough, Jordan and I were talking about this ahead of this one, being like, "Have you seen Brazil?
Oh, Brazil!
Have you seen Brazil, Brian? Yeah, Brazil is great.
Yeah. No, they're all.
This is weirdly like we're like standing in the one and only like Brazil fan club of all time like, right now. Like this is it. We've got like the meeting of the minds like right here in this in this chat.
No, as a matter of fact, I am convinced that the true ending of Toy Story 3, when they're about to get melted in that pile, but then they just randomly get saved by the giant claw crane, I am convinced that is the last dying thoughts of Woody as he died, and it's a total Brazil ending, that he's lost his mind at that moment.
Wow.
But there's like a
and
whole
Toy
final
Story
act
4
Yeah.
is all imaginary too now, because it's just like
everything they make from now on is in their imagination.
It's all fanfic, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
I like the idea that the first 3 full Toy Stories were supposed to be nonfiction, and they're like, you know what? We're gonna explore the imagination now. Thanks, Pixar.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I thought you were going to say the Zero Theorem or whichever one that he made more recently, but I have not seen that one. I'm not even aware of this other movie, but I think that does make sense. Why, if it's supposed to be escapism, is it so sad? It's so nothing is resolved.
I like the idea that like this, especially this kid, but just generally any kid really has no control over their life. And so with this kid, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to at least escape into imagination where I still have no control, but it's at least more fun. And maybe I'll find a better dad.
But then why do they always betray? It does seem to me like a weird ongoing thread of these movies where a kid like escapes his life and goes into a book or something. There is an ongoing thread of like, well, you can't have everything you want. It still sucks here. Just sucks in a different way.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
I mean, the alternative is the never-ending story where the kid becomes a bully and chases people with a dragon and rains terror. Like that's like
But even in his escapist fantasy of that world, they're like, no, the darkness is coming and everybody's dying, and it's actually very scary here, and you're gonna watch your horse die. And he's like, no, and they're like, well, face it, it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it is sort of like you still have to face life. You just face it in a more fantastical way.
Meanwhile, the kid is like an allegory for he's like, yeah, I bought crypto, so I'm going to make all your lives miserable now.
This kid still did have his epilogue similar to the Neverending Story because he gets to like watch his parents explode.
Well, what master craftsmanship for us to care so little about them that as audience members we're like, yeah, okay, no, that tracks. He's probably going to go get adopted by Sean Connery, the fireman.
Yeah. The first time he met Sean Connery was already like scampering away on his horse. And all the kid had to do is say like, wait, actually, I'd like to come. And then it's like smash cut and he's already on the horse with him. So that's all he just has to turn around and just sort of wave to the fire truck.
And the fire truck will turn around.
New dad.
Also, that whole Agamemnon sequence, when he comes back after defeating the Minotaur or whatever, I love the never spoken, just implied B-roll or B-plot of the loveless marriage that he's in. And it's like when you only have 6 minutes to tell his whole story in there, like you get it. Agamemnon's trying to make stuff happen. He loves the idea of having a son. His wife is a terrible person. And as a magician, I will vouch, because it is an unbroken shot in the days of film. That's Sean Connery is doing some competent sleight of hand with his cups and ball routine.
All right.
Did he slide it off the table? Is that what he did? Because I was trying to watch.
Yeah, he places it, and under movement, magicians say laps it. He pulls one of it far enough back that it lands in his lap, and then he rests. At which point he palms it and then produces it. And he also does a competent French drop, and it's great. Is
that what French drop? Is that the little like ping at the end? Throws it back in?
French drop is where you hold something in your left hand, you appear to pick it up with your right hand, it's retained in the other hand, and so then you, when you reveal your right hand empty, that's when he drops the nothing, and then he just makes a ping sound underneath the table.
Oh, okay. Wow, what can't the French do?
What can't Sean Connery do?
Apparently,
I mean, I think the best. I was consistently surprised and delighted by the actors who appeared in the movie. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. They weren't even all mentioned in the beginning. It seemed either that or my brain was not reading properly. But like every so often I'd be like, oh my God, Ian Holm. Oh my God. It's, I just,
Shelley Duvall again.
Shelley Duvall.
I know. That was so fun. I feel like Rule of Threes though. We had to have her back a third time. Like where was she? That ongoing thing like throughout time where like she's in love with this guy who's got some unspoken medical issues.
So
I was just waiting for them to come back at like the end of the world or something.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't do a third one. I thought I must have missed it. I counted that up to like a glitch in my own brain.
She's probably a fireman or something.
That would have been so funny.
I feel like Brian, we're starting to dig more into our psyches as we do this one. Shelley Duvall. So she was in a movie called The Coal Miner's Daughter, I believe.
Yes.
And she like haunts people because she dies. And something about that movie scared me so much. Her haunting me because she is a very unique looking person, and it freaked me out as a kid. And I used to have nightmares and stuff. Just thinking about Shelley Duvall. So every time I see her in something.
Oh wait, no. Coal Miner's Daughter is the one that's about Loretta Lynn with Sissy Spacek. But you are correct that there is a movie that you are describing that is this plot, but I can't think of it.
You're right. Also, Sissy Spacek lives here. I had dinner with her once. It was great. I didn't know.
You know what's funny is Shelley Duvall lives here. She lives about 30 minutes south of here.
Well,
and
don't bring her on the podcast. It'll freak me out.
Let's find out the name of the movie that you're thinking of.
Nobody lives here in dumb old New York.
Yeah.
I used to watch her show religiously, whatever that was, where she's in the big
the one where she was doing like a story time on.
Yeah.
It was a Showtime original. Yeah.
Something about that movie though freaked me out, and it didn't help that she was also in The Shining and stuff. But anyway. I was just seeing her again. She actually was really funny, and but there's a little 8-year-old inside of me like, no, turn it off. He's coming. She wears box shoes or whatever the plot of that movie is. Anyway, I thought it was funny to see the top billing at the beginning was John Cleese, who's not in it very much,
right?
And then Sean Connery, who is more fleshed out. And then a bunch of those other, I saw that Shelley Duvall was in there, so I knew I was ready. I was geared up.
Yeah, a bit weird
I was prepped.
that all of the Time Bandits weren't in the in the top billing. They do. I think they do cast in order of appearance. While the fantastic song, I think it's "Dream Away" by George Harrison plays, which I will always have warm fuzzies for because of this movie. Yeah.
Well, it's like they didn't have like Warwick Davis or something. Like they didn't have.
They did have Kenny Baker outside of the R2D2 tin can.
Sure,
Mm-hmm.
that's true. Yeah, man, it's such a wild idea to cast that many, like to make that the point of the movie. Like
yet never. They're never, the fact that they're all little people is never used as a punchline in and of itself. I thought that just
great.
makes them exotic and it implies their diminished status in heaven, where we did slugs and shrubs and stuff.
We made a smelly tree once.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because that was their job. They were like employed by God to like help just sort of create just some of the smaller things. Because one of the first things they say is like, this whole universe was a rush job. It was all in 7 days.
That was such a funny line.
Yeah.
He said it was a bit of a botch job. We only had 7 days to make it. Like what?
Yeah.
Just so good.
Yeah.
I also really liked the line, if I was creating a world, I would have started with lasers, 8 o'clock, day one.
That was
so good.
Really funny. But so essentially this gang was like sort of beta testing the universe is sort of like what we find out at the end. Like they're not really bandits. They were like under control of the supreme being or whatever the whole time.
And
just letting them run around and find the problems and see if they could fix them.
And for as bonkers, it's a rather neat, tidy bow for them to say that at the end, but it does kind of clear up all of the plot holes, so to speak. It's like, okay.
There's nothing that suggests that it it gets to the end and you're like, well, it makes sense in the fabric of the movie that all the things happen the way that it did. But when you're sitting down imagining a guy writing the script, you're like, man, you were really cooking.
You were definitely hanging out with George Harrison and Terry Gilliam.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that is what's so fascinating to me. And I know we've already alluded to this, but I just think it's so fun to think of somebody writing a movie like this and then trying to bring it to life and then realizing it had a $5 million budget. Like a lot of this was done with camera trickery, with homemade sets. Like it was a cheap movie that they just blew out by being really smart with the camera, being really good with, doing weird things like teaching Sean Connery sleight of hand to make that scene more interesting. Like it's just dense.
Well,
in a
when
really cool way.
When they first push the wall and they just keep pushing it and it's like a practical effect, I was pretty sold like immediately. You're like, that's cool. Take
It's
me
very
away.
cool.
What's going to
Yeah.
happen next? Like, that's really neat.
And there are a couple of moments where, as film transfers get made, you see some stuff you're not supposed to, like when they're hanging in the cages in the layer of evil in the theater. It's just blackness forever and ever and ever beneath them. And it was terrifying to me. Now, if you look, you can see that like 3 feet lower, you're catching a little bit of the sound stage in there. But But despite all of that, like thinking back on all the places you go to, it feels big. It feels like a big story.
absolutely.
I was thinking that when they were, especially in the Napoleon one, I was like, there's like a lot of explosions and soldiers and horses and stuff.
Yeah,
It
that was
felt,
a big fun set. Multi-layer, stage, backstage, like parapets and
yeah.
blown up
You-
buildings. It was awesome.
You could also tell there was a little bit of Ed Wood in there because the film grain changes as they go to like the stock B-roll of French armies and stuff. But again,
Sure.
it played.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like the most obvious, they were running out of money or something, was the Titanic scene where it's
Yeah.
like only
Yeah.
from the side, but even still, they flip the whole freaking set and everybody goes flying, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and then there's that whirlpool effect where they look like they're really
About to
swirling
drown.
around in the water.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny though, wanting to run it past us to see if it holds up as far as like, did I have as much fun? It's funny. We're watching a lot of movies recently where I have a lot more fun thinking about watching it than I did maybe in the moment of it. And I do.
I'll cop to this being that kind of movie. I've lived in it more not watching it than watching it.
I think Anchorman is obviously a wildly different movie, but I have so much more fun quoting it than I ever would actually watching Will Ferrell say things in that movie again. Like, I don't have any need to watch it again. And I feel like with this one, there are so many things that were so cool, but I think just by virtue of being like a 1981 film, things just take longer, you know? Like the dude with the boat on his head coming out of the water is awesome.
Oh
Yeah.
It's also
That
a
was
really
cool.
long scene. And
Yeah, I noticed when they had the puppet sort of like running around, because that's a puppet from what's it called? From a previous Monty Python movie.
Oh, is it?
the little critter thing with the nose or whatever, like in the house.
Yes. Yeah. But I was like, well, I remember watching that for, again, it felt like a long time, being like, okay, I guess the next plot is going to be in this guy's house. But then it doesn't, it just gets stopped and that guy's gone.
And then that guy's gone.
I do think
mean-
that was, another budget thing. If they'd already made that, they're like, and now they're in this house.
But there is some fun stuff that, like, I was just doing a little bit of reading about it after.
Sure.
And there was like an actor change for Mrs. Ogre, like on the boat, when there's like a big scary like minotaur kind of guy and his wife's just a
Yeah.
wife, which I thot was extremely funny. Like, I like loved that.
she was
That, like,
great.
she's a great actress, and it's funny that her name is Mrs. Ogre, but only by marriage. Like her maiden name was like Miss Jones. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I really enjoy that. But it wasn't even like meant to be that way. It was genuinely they had like a last minute actor change, and the prosthetics didn't fit her, and they couldn't pay to make new ones, and and they were like, what if she's just a lady? And so it's like
That's awesome.
that. I like stuff like that because like
I read,
what?
so I was just saying, I read that.
Like I read that
the
was a lie, actually, Allie. I actually read that what you read was
No.
false.
No, I read that it was actually like the actress. It was like the actress's idea to be like, "What if I'm not an ogre?"
Yeah,
And
it's so
then
funny.
It was like, "Yeah, actually, that's hilarious. Let's do it."
That
That's-
feels to me very like a fun sort of like that like community theater kind of like banding together of just
Yeah.
like, what if instead God's on roller skates? And you're like, whoa, what if God's on roller skates? That's genius, dude. Let's go with it. Like, I like when if something can't be the biggest production budget of all time, I would almost rather see the seams, because like then we can like have some
Yeah.
fun with it.
Mm.
And like I think this is like a good example of like seeing the like patching it up and being like, but look how we patched it up. Wasn't that kind of cool? And being like,
yeah.
yeah, that was kind of cool. Thank you. Thanks
I
for letting me
definitely-
like have a little peek.
I definitely want to get to that level as an actor someday, where I could be like, what if I'm like not Batman? What if I'm just like Jeff? And they're like,
What
well,
if just like a guy?
yeah, I know you wrote all this stuff, but like, what if I'm just Jeff? And they're like, well,
It
guess.
seems like Terry Gilliam was sort of like, okay, like, all right, we're all here to have fun. Like, who's got ideas? You got an idea? You got an idea? Not you, George Harrison. He seemed to be like fully. Like,
I mean,
against
don't
anything
get us
George
wrong.
Harrison
Thank
said.
you for the Beetle Bucks, but you know,
Yeah. We'll use your song in the credits after the parents die 100%.
yeah.
I stumbled across something that I went 40 years without knowing. But in a book, Robert Hewison says that the dwarfs, the Time Bandits, are meant to represent the Monty Python troupe. The nice one is Fidget, supposed to be Palin. The self-appointed leader, Randall, is Cleese. The acerbic one is Strutter, is Eric Idle. Quiet one, Og, is Graham Chapman. The noisy rebel, Wally, is Terry Jones. And the nasty, filth-loving one, Vermin, is Terry Gilliam himself, which I thought that was, I mean, talk about bearing the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I do think you definitely get that vibe, which is this is, a proto, like before SNL was doing this all the time. I mean, I guess they were doing some of this, but like funny people that make sketch comedy together, then trying to grow up and make movies. Like Lonely Island is doing a lot of this stuff where they're trying to make real movies sometimes. And it's so interesting because Terry Gilliam has, movies like Brazil, movies like 12 Monkeys. He's like a legitimately very, very talented director who all of his friends are idiots. And he's like, and like he's like making a kids movie and he has all the chops to make it really, really impressive. But he's also like, Robin Hood's going to be freaking John Cleese saying some of the dumbest lines you've ever heard, but selling that perfectly. I don't know. That's so fun to me. Most of the videos that we're doing now for Cracked are it's me and my friend who lives up the street who we made videos together in high school. And so for me, this idea, like I could feel that from this movie where things will happen like whatever prop you bought doesn't fit your fat head or whatever. So I guess you're just not wearing it. Or like all these $20 movies that we make, which are all my friends from college, where it's like, well, shit, like the cape broke, so I guess Batman is wearing a trash bag. And I don't know. That's so fun to me, and it's fun to see somebody get real money and be really talented. So hopefully I'll be Terry Gilliam someday. That's my goal.
That's exactly what
so you can just
came to mind was like
taking your friend down a peg. Be like, you're George Harrison and you suck.
Yeah, you're the dumb one. You're only in the most successful band of all time.
Yeah, it's just like I was watching this movie and like obviously I don't have any like affection for it from a nostalgic point of view, obviously, because it was my first time seeing it. But it made me nostalgic for the things I was nostalgic for.
Yeah.
Like saying like Little Nemo and Slumberland, this like movie that like is your childhood and nobody else seemingly has ever heard of. Like for a lot of people I know, I did not feel this way, but like tons of my friends loved Return to Oz. Did you ever watch that?
Mm-mm.
It's this really weird sequel to Wizard of Oz that's like dark and genuinely like kind of fucked up. Like they're all like, Dorothy, you're crazy because you keep talking about having gone to Oz. We're gonna like commit you to an insane asylum. And she like goes back to Oz, but everything's dark and weird, and there's like really harrowing sequences. And like I watched it for the first time basically as an adult and was like, this is bad. And people were like, no, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why it's good. I can't like convince you that it's good. It's not bad because I love it.
Well, on the subject of whether this is bad or good, I'm not gonna lie. I got self-conscious for a second and I checked the Rotten Tomatoes ratings.
Oh, it's very high.
Do you guys have a guess?
90%.
Yeah, that's exactly right. 90% positive reviews on this.
Yeah. No, it was universally
it,
acclaimed. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like #1 for 4 weeks or something. It like the first weekend it made back more than what they spent on it. Like It's a good film. I think it'd be hard to argue that it's a bad one.
Oh, and it's like fun and sophisticated in a weird way that like a good movie can kind of grow with you. Like as a kid, you're like, I liked it because of swords. And then later you're like, I liked it because God was dead. Do you know what I'm saying?
One last bit of intel. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but we reported on it on a podcast I do called Cord Killers. But Apple TV Plus has gotten the rights to make a television show about it. And the last bit of news was that Taika Waititi is going to write and produce it. Which
I saw that. That's so sick.
I mean, on the one hand, it's like I don't inherently love remaking everything, but also I wouldn't mind if more people experience the bonkersness that is Time Bandits.
Do you know? Did they mention like is Peter Dinklage starring in it? Are they gonna go that route again, or are they going to? Because I imagine that would be much tougher to sell and to do. Like appropriately and stuff like that, or do you think they just go for it? I don't know if that had been in there or mentioned.
I would guess that the purpose of them being little people originally was just, to shine a light on a type of person that you don't normally think of or see. And my guess is the move would be to find some other marginalized, interesting, not marginalized, but interesting group of people that you wouldn't normally think of.
Yeah. I could see that being the case.
Yeah. I mean, I always liked that, like, when you have a kid as the lead, it is always sort of weird to be like, now we're going to drag this kid along. And that, like, it was kind of nice and, like, equitable that, like, the focus of the child was at the same focus as everybody else who was, like, a protagonist in the film. And that, like, when they encountered a new weirdo like Agamemnon, it was like, no, you come down to my level. You come crouch down to where I am, as opposed to, like, the kid being like, I'm so small and I have to be around all these giant people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That always feels like fun as, like, a doorway to, like, literally the focus of the camera is, like, at the child's level. It's like
that's what I was referring to before we actually started recording, but he had the camera, like, at a lower level so that it would be sort of like looking up at the kid and at the gang, so that they are, not the diminutive figures. They're, like, taking up the full screen, and they're the focal point of this universe.
Right. Yeah. And that, like, people have to come to them to like meet the heroes, not like the other way around.
Yeah.
Anybody else still mad that they stole him from King Agamemnon? He had a good thing going there.
Well, that was kind of messed up.
That's literally all he wanted. Like, that's the first thing that he mentions in the movie is basically like, I want to learn how to kill people 45 ways like the ancient Greeks. He's reading the book. All of his imagination seemingly stems from that. And they're like, no.
And he's mad at them too. He's like, that was gonna be my dad. And they were like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We got, like, a mission to do.
Right. It is funny.
They were basically like, trust us, you're gonna like this better. And then nothing that happened after that was
it got really
good.
bad.
And then he got returned to Earth, and his parents blew up.
Again, this is a Terry Gilliam film. This is Brazil. This is, it's like the problem with dreams is eventually you wake up.
I didn't realize that it was like it was like a Terry Gilliam film. I'm trying this thing where if it's a movie I haven't watched before, I go in cold. I don't learn anything about it until after I watch it.
Good idea.
That was a mistake, I think, in this instance, because the first, like, few minutes, I kind of thought maybe this is like a Wishbone, where it's like a serious, like, this kid's going to be going through history and learning things. And it wasn't that. It was Monty Python, just starring.
It was Monty Python Wishbone.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, even just I don't know if you guys know the answer to this question, but it just something about a lot of his films, 12 Monkeys, Brazil. It just looks the same, like his wacky take on technology, where it's like feels like lots of pipes and steam everywhere and like really inefficient, ugly technology. And I wonder, if that's always his idea, or if he has like a guy, like an H.R. Geiger guy.
He's got a pipe guy.
Yeah, he's got a pipe guy.
This guy makes pipes. They make steam, future.
But I do think it's so interesting that he is so anti-technology in everything that he makes. It's I don't know. It's the whole intro to me was very Brazil, because in Brazil they're like trying to do all these things technologically, and like his mom eventually like melts herself into goo in Brazil because she's trying to apply so many technological advances to her face and her body.
Isn't that the same actor that is Mrs. Ogre?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just as a running joke for this podcast, that's a movie that Robert De Niro is in.
That's
Brazil.
Yeah.
Can we prove that?
I thought you meant this one. I was like, Allie, no.
Nobody is in Brazil, and you can take that back to the bank.
I love Bob De Niro as Napoleon in this film.
She misidentified Brian. She misidentified Dustin Hoffman as Robert De Niro.
But even weirder, after an hour and a half of talking about Dustin Hoffman accurately, I just somehow reached into the wrong recesses of my brain and then was like, yeah, remember when Rob De Niro was doing this? And they were like, I actually don't.
Yeah.
So anyway,
like, I think I might have watched a different.
Now I get bonus points when Robert De Niro is in a movie.
That we didn't watch, but sure.
No, we didn't watch. But yeah, this was like the kid's view of an adult being obsessed with technology and having their brain sort of melted and being like, I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of like in Matilda, it's the like her parents being obsessed with like money and consumerism and cars and TV. This felt like the British version of that.
I think, yeah, it's to me feels a little bit like that thing where a filmmaker tries to tell you why movies are so great. In particular, it's kind of like he's very, very clearly nihilistic, like nothing's very happy about it. But he's pretty anti not fantastical imagination. Technology sucks. That game show, what is it, like you win or you die?
Your money or your life? Yeah.
Yeah, your money or
and
your
it's
life.
like it's all garbage. It's like, so what? And in fact, that's the a malfunctioning gizmo is what burns down their house at the end, you know?
Right. Which, although on a weird, they didn't do it though, right? Like I think it's implied that one of the Time Bandits maybe.
It's implied that that's the last piece of evil that they missed when they were cleaning up. And then, you know, this is sort of like the waking up from the dream, the setting him back and all that stuff. And almost as a gift, it's like, yeah, also, I know your parents are garbage. How about this?
So anyway, how about if we blow them up for you?
How about we murder them?
You're like, is that a euphemism? Like we'll blow them up for you? And they're like, yeah, euphemism. Yeah, we'll blow them up for you.
To death.
To death.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, it's kind of that thing like we've been saying, but it's this idea that imagination is very valuable, though like movies are valuable, but also there's a limit, right? Because then you come back and your parents, and it's just, it's such an interesting nihilistic view of life. Like again, bringing up the Coen brothers, like they tend to do everything is relatively nihilistic, but they still sort of settle on, but we're here, so we might as well love each other kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is like almost like you could almost read this to say, well, things are bad, and even fantasy is a little scary, but like maybe stay there as long as you can because it's not as good as here.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that like the when they talk to like the supreme being and he's like has no answers, it's essentially that like there is no order to the universe,
right?
So it's like in that way that like these kids can, or like these like, you know, interdimensional bandits can like find fun in the chaos. It's like there is no.
I just want to point out they say international a lot. I'm like, it's a little bigger than that.
And dimensional and galactical, but okay.
Yeah. It's weird that they stay on Earth, but
I don't know. What if the end it's not Earth?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
That whole
I just
third
thought
act.
that was really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's very like there is no order to the universe.
Right.
So like stop worrying if your decisions are right or wrong. There is no right or wrong to compare it to. It like literally is just like it is a straight up meaningless. In my favorite piece of fiction of all time, like genuinely, I'll never make us watch it because it is 6 hours long. Angels in America, which I think is the best piece of fiction written in the 20th century. I'm gonna just put that out there.
Angels in Airwaves?
Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah.
No. Angels in America, which is a play that was written by Tony Kushner, has a great adaptation that's on HBO if you ever want to watch something and be sad. In that world, God just got bored with us. He was just like, they used to really have my attention and like it was so interesting. And now just like people. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I love that too. Like that speaks to me that like even like what we would call is like the supreme. Like, I don't know, just like you guys haven't done anything interesting in a while. So I kind of stopped paying attention to what was going on Earth. Can you blame me?
The actor even seemed like he was phoning it in.
I was going to say that he almost appeared to be in a different room from the other actors. The way that he was kind of acting, looking over them, looking past them, kind of like, what?
And the casual way he says, come on now, chop, chop. Otherwise, they're going to think we left the whole damn thing to evolution.
It's so good. That's such a good line.
Yeah. It's so funny that, and to your point, he like, they're like, what? You let us take the map? And he's like, yeah, why not?
Of course.
It wasn't like it cosmically fixed anything. It wasn't like, this was all part of the grand design. He was like, I don't know, you took it for a while and we saw what happened and we blew up evil. That was kind of interesting because that was just an experiment. Isn't that what he said? He like,
he comes in, he says, well, I think he turned out rather well. What? evil.
Yeah.
And it's just so like, God's just like, I don't know, why not? I mean, I'm in control of all of it very clearly and very powerfully, but also like, doesn't mean I'm not just going to let random crap happen.
Yeah, what do you want me to be on?
You guys are
I
making
can't
me
be
want to
awake
go
all the
back and
time.
watch it again. I mean,
Yeah.
It is a fascinating movie and just so interesting. Again, like all of these choices, like, it builds up to a pretty typical, like, it's essentially the violent version of the end of the first Bill and Ted movie, where it's like, we've brought all these characters from history to blast history into the villain. Or
you know what?
the,
Actually,
history teacher.
I think you asked what modern parallel there would be. I think that certainly Bill and Ted owes a deep debt to Time Bandits, because Bill and Ted is kind of the same thing. You're never more than 5 minutes from another place, wacky adventure, or what have you.
Right. That's true. Well, when was the first one out? I mean, they couldn't have been that far.
I want to say 88, maybe.
Okay.
So yeah, that's like a
Nearly
89. So that's like
89.
8 years.
Yeah.
But it's just, so they set it all up. They brought a freaking Panzer all the way to like a laser ship, and they all die. And it's just like
cowboys.
Yeah, cowboys.
Yeah.
They're like,
also, I am such a sucker for mashups that don't belong together, and the idea of cowboys or knights charging in and seeing evil wearing World War I era mustard gas protection.
Oh yeah.
And the ridiculousness of him becoming a pincushion to repel Greek archers. Oh,
I love anything where like the ultimate evil can ostensibly do anything. So he turns into like a giant tomato, or his head comes up and a knife comes out of his head and he spins really fast. And that's like how evil functions. I love that.
Yeah,
You're
evil.
Like, what?
Evil is like constrained to the rules of like Rube Goldberg.
100%.
If you
He
can
also
fit the
does,
slimy
though.
alien knife in your body.
He blew up a dog. And that is like 101.
Oh,
Don't do it in a movie. Don't kill the dog.
But also they
He's
very
okay,
much
but-
established that that's the one thing all of his minions want, is to be
Right.
killed by him. And
Yeah,
so,
I love
to fire off missiles, he peels back fingers and launches. It's so bonkers.
it's a similar thing to, we recently watched Addams Family Values, and they lean into it a lot more clunkily, but it's a very similar thing where it's like, bad is good.
Right. Yeah.
He's like-
all the villains are like, yeah, I want horrible things to happen, which is
Please blow
because
me up.
I'm evil is the opposite of what a good person would want.
Yeah.
It is a really goofy juxtaposition.
But they do it a lot more cleverly here, where he's like, the one henchman is like, you say such nice things to me, master. He's like, I know, I'm sorry.
Right. That's actually, I don't know if you all have seen Barry, the show on HBO.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So the scene that comes to mind is where Barry's finally starting to reckon with some of the horrible things he's done. And he goes, am I a bad person? He's like, oh my God, you are the worst person I know. Do not tell you that. You are so bad. It's one of my favorite moments in that show. But cool. Thank you for showing us this. Let's are there any other like lingering
No,
thoughts,
dude.
I
feel like I gave a gift that was truly appreciated, and now I'm just gonna grin for the rest of the day.
People will watch this after they hear this. I think our description of it is just vague enough and just scary enough that people will be like, I gotta see this to hear what they're talking about. So I think you will have inspired other people to watch this movie.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I did have one thing. So just on this, I wrote this down because it was one of my favorite lines. It is interesting. Again, it's his like technology versus imagination, I guess. I love that the guy was, like you said, day one, I would have invented lasers. But he's like, God doesn't know what he's doing. He put nipples on men.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's a testament to David Warner that he does all of this with real malice and menace in his heart. Nipples on men.
Right. Just like that's the reason to overthrow God. Is he focuses too much on male nipples. And then just a couple of lines that jumped out is when the Cowboys run in, say, I guess we'll have a lynch-in. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Just a couple of little moments like that did not age the best. And then I just love that Sean Connery is a Greek Scotsman.
Yeah.
And I love in movies when they are like traveling through time, nobody even tries. They're just like, yeah, I'm Catherine the Great now. What's up? And you're like,
It reminds me. It reminds me of like even as a kid, I was like, why does the Beastmaster have a smallpox vaccine scar? You know.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty great. I there were a lot of little moments, little lines, little exchanges, and it goes both so fast and so slow. It's like moment by moment is not as quick as you would expect from a modern thing, but the sum total of the movie is a whiplash.
Yeah, it flies. We're in many locations.
Crazy.
Real quick.
Anybody else have anything, or are we ready for titles?
Well, I wanted to point out one thing. Did you guys ever catch the trailer?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Oh my God. I think I went and visited it, and I remember it bearing no resemblance to the movie.
Yes, it's a big joke. Honestly, like if I'd watched that before watching the movie, I don't know if I would have gotten it more or less, because it's a very Monty Python trailer where they have an announcer and then the announcer starts messing up and then like the director comes in and starts arguing with the announcer while all these clips are playing and stuff. It's really funny, and it sets the theme that it's like, don't take this movie too seriously.
Yeah.
Right. I do think so. Back to my point about like, would this get made today? There's just a lot of things when movies were still younger that they could get away with that was fun. Like a trailer had to stand out more then, and so you could do wacky, weirder stuff. Whereas now it's just like, well, if it's the new Spider-Man trailer, it'll trend on Twitter. So the whole game is like putting a pumpkin bomb in there and having an old villain laugh, and then everybody will be like, oh my God, who could it be? Like with the Palpatine thing where he's like cackling, and so all the conversation, it's just Easter eggs. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's Easter eggs to other movies in the franchise. So for a trailer to just be like, I'm not going to tell you anything, and this is stupid, and just come watch our movie because we're funny, and people did, I guess. It's pretty awesome.
And they liked it.
Great. So let's do some titles.
Yeah.
The first one that jumped out to me was just Monty Python and the Holy Map.
Nice.
It's not the craziest title, but it felt very appropriate in some ways. You guys got anything?
My thought was Brazil for Kids, but it has to be in the font of the 1-800 Cars for Kids.
Brazil for Kids.
For Kids.
For Kids.
Oh man, I didn't know I had to prepare for this, but all I could think of is just like the fact that it's presented as a kid's show, but it very clearly is meant only. It's like Therapy for 30 Years, the movie.
Yes.
Therapy, the movie. Or 30.
That's what has been like the theme of our recent discussions. It's just us been like being like, were we messed up kids? Were we messed up? Did we have messed up childhoods?
Am I
okay?
whimsical, or am I experiencing Arrested Development?
Exactly.
Sorry, did you say husband? Are you married now?
Huh?
It sounded like you said husband.
I didn't say anything. I said, were we messed up?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I thought you said
Wouldn't
said
that be
this
crazy
with your husband
if I was
a
like,
lot.
yeah, we recorded on Tuesday. Wednesday I was wed. Today's Thursday.
Well, I was very surprised if that was the case.
Wouldn't that be nuts? I would love to be such a mysterious person that I was just like, yeah, what can I say? It happened yesterday. I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy and just so full of other things going on that just no one ever even knows when the biggest moments of my life happen. It's just kind of crazy that way.
Well, like my sister married a Brazilian guy in the middle of COVID, and so they got
Brazil
married.
for Kids.
Yeah, Brazil for Kids, and she got married four times. Because she had to get married
because
legally.
she needed the booster to the Delta variants.
Yep. Wedding shot 1, wedding shot 2.
Had to wait 2 weeks.
Wedding booster.
And Brazil's not doing super hot with some of that stuff. No, but she got legally married here, legally married in Brazil, ceremoniously married here, ceremoniously married in Brazil. So
wow.
And then one underwater just to see what happens.
For funsies.
Yeah, just a wacky one. Jesse, you got any titles for us?
Yeah, okay. I've got hi there, Face here.
Okay.
That's for a
Throw
slightly
back to our Nick Jr.
older. Slash younger. I'm having a hard time contextualizing when that would be. What year was like Face a thing?
Oh,
Like
that was like the
1996?
mid-90s, I
Yeah,
think. or maybe
even
early
I'm aware
90s.
of Face, so I have to assume that was later on.
Yeah. This, I didn't get to mention, but I feel like this is another in like a very specific 80s, 90s kids genre that's like, well, here's just the title I'm going to pitch. There's Rascals in Your Furniture. There's like... there's like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Okay, obviously. Then there's The Indian in a Cupboard. And now there's this, where all these rascals come running out of the kid's closet.
Yeah.
Rascals in Your Bedroom.
Yeah, Rascals in Your Bedroom. And then my last one is just a Jordan quote that I thought fit, and it's lots of pipes and steam everywhere.
There is lots of pipes and steam everywhere.
Also, I was just going to say, I just thought of this as not for titling, but when you were talking about nostalgia, I'm kind of in this weird phase where I've been listening to a ton of like retro wave music, which is like 80s movie soundtracks, but like being made now and sung over. And every single time it like makes me nostalgic for this period of, I didn't even live through this. I didn't watch this stuff, but I'm like, yeah, childhood, sci-fi, all this stuff. And this movie had that naturally. And it made me again like, oh, the childhood that I never had that I longed for or whatever. Because we only listened to like
it's like
growing up.
Living your whole life having opioid receptors and never experiencing them until your first dose of heroin. like all this latent nostalgia is in there.
Yes, I wish I had heroin much younger. I wish I had.
Sorry, there is the loudest siren outside.
Yeah,
it's Sean Connery
on back there.
Sean Connery. He's coming to wink at me and then blow up my loved ones.
Your parents are cutting it.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you were afraid of Shelley Duvall. I'm going to be like, no, Sean Connery, please.
Oh, my parents.
Don't take my face.
Stay away from my toaster oven, Mr. Connery.
I need it. It's smart.
I also cannot find the title of whatever it was that Shelley Duvall scared you so much in as like the mind person.
I'm sure it's real.
Maybe this was
I believe you. I just don't know if it was a movie as much as it was like a made-for-TV spooky story.
I think this was Jordan's Time Bandits experience. He fell asleep one night thinking about Shelley Duvall, and he just hallucinated an entire adventure.
Yeah, a scary one where she came out and haunted him.
Yeah, I'm just gonna after this, I'll Google why did Shelley Duvall scare me so bad when I was 8.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kind of see. Google's getting pretty smart. Allie, where can we find you?
You can find me and my box shoes at Miss Alice Nutting on Twitter, NSALICENUTTING. I hope I didn't freak you out too bad.
That's what we're gonna find out is that you snuck into my house when I was 8 and
and wore
danced
box
on the
shoes.
water as a ghost or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jesse, where can we find you?
Oh yeah, okay. Hit me on Twitter at Eisemann, EISEMANN.
Excellent. And I am on Twitter at _J_breeding and also just like watch Cracked. And Brian, where can we find you?
Yo, dude, you know that thing that people do when they make recommendations? They're like, it really gets good around episode 8 or give it 4 seasons of Babylon 5 or whatever. I ain't going to do that. I'm going to give you the 10-minute challenge. Just listen to the first 5 minutes of episode 1 of World's Greatest Con and the first 4 minutes of episode 2. You'll understand what it is, and it's a short and sweet 3.5 hours. I think you'll like it quite a lot. Just
Cool.
Search for it on any of your podcasting things.
Yeah, and I can vouch for it. It is good. It's really interesting. It's a really good way of tackling that subject, I think. And I'm going to read this thing. Please subscribe to Crack Movie Club on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, and if you are on YouTube, just subscribe. And then also we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And now we're on Facebook, but that's probably... It's probably morally dubious to follow us on there.
We're in talks with the executives at Quibi also,
and the executives with Putin's Russia or something.
Yeah, the evil being came out and was like, "You want to be on my podcast network?" And we were like, "Sure."
Yeah, right.
If you get good CPMs, and then we are also a newsletter that you could subscribe to if you go to crack.com/movie club, where I write a column every week, and I'm just going to say what I'm writing now so that when you hear it in 2 months, you'll go check it out. I'm Sharknado threw bombs. They threw bombs into a tornado to dissipate it, and science has not disproven that. So still possible. Sharknado, that part of Sharknado is possible. Anyway, so we're doing that. You can also yell at us on there if you want, if that's something you're into. And that's it. We'll
Dude,
see you later.
I have one question.
Yes.
How much is fair use to play the end song from Time Bandits?
Ooh.
We'll just cut it if we have to.
Yeah. It'll be like a robot being like, this audio could not be found. This audio could not be found.
All right, the lawyers are already at the door.
Yeah.
Oh, God. No, run, Brian, run.
I have actually been emailed by Warner Music lawyer to say, we're not going to sue you. I was like, oh, thank you.
That's kind.
We were thinking about it, but we decided not to sue you.
We're just
I'll let
taking
you know.
all of your royalties on Tenet for $20, but it's fine.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. All right. And now we're saying bye.
Okay, bye.
Hell yeah, bye.